On Christmas Eve in 2002, a pregnant woman vanished without a trace, leaving behind a quiet neighborhood filled with questions, suspicion, and a husband whose story didn't quite add up. Her name was Laci Peterson, 8 months pregnant, preparing for the arrival of her son, Conner. What should have been a joyful time turned into one of the most haunting true crime cases in American history. At first, it looked like a missing person case. But within days, it became something far darker. Because sometimes, the most dangerous person isn't a stranger lurking in the shadows, it's the one standing right beside you. Laci Peterson lived in Modesto, California, with her husband, Scott Peterson. To outsiders, their life seemed normal. Scott was charming, calm, and successful. Laci was warm, kind, and excited about becoming a mother. But beneath that picture-perfect image, cracks were already forming. On December 24th, Scott claimed he left home early to go fishing at the Berkeley Marina. He said Laci was still at home, planning to walk the dog and prepare for the holidays. That was the last time he said he saw her. When Laci didn't return, concern quickly turned into panic. Her dog was found wandering alone, leash still attached. The house showed no signs of struggle. Her purse and keys were still inside. It was as if she had simply vanished into thin air. As police began their investigation, Scott appeared cooperative, but something about his demeanor raised eyebrows. He wasn't frantic. He wasn't emotional. He seemed oddly distant. Then came the revelation that changed everything. Scott Peterson was having an affair. Her name was Amber Frey. And what made it even more chilling was that Scott had told Amber he was a widower. Not separated. Not going through a divorce. A widower. Even more disturbing, he told her this weeks before Laci disappeared. Amber, realizing the gravity of the situation, contacted police and agreed to help. She recorded phone calls with Scott, who continued to lie, even while his missing wife's face was plastered across national television. During one call, Scott told Amber he was spending Christmas in Paris. In reality, he was standing just miles away from a vigil being held for his missing wife. That moment sent shockwaves across the country. The case quickly turned into a media frenzy. The nation watched closely, analyzing every move Scott made. And with each passing day, suspicion grew stronger. In the middle of all this, if you're drawn to real stories like this one, where truth feels stranger than fiction, make sure you're subscribed to Shadow Files. Because some cases don't just tell a story, they leave you questioning everything. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered more troubling details. Scott had purchased a small fishing boat just weeks before Laci vanished. He told no one about it. Not his family. Not his friends. And the location he claimed to have gone fishing? The same area where something unthinkable would later be discovered. In April 2003, months after Laci disappeared, the remains of a fetus were found along the shoreline of the San Francisco Bay. Shortly after, the remains of a woman's body were discovered nearby. DNA testing confirmed the worst. It was Laci and her unborn son, Conner. The discovery devastated the nation. What had once been hope turned into heartbreak. And now, the case shifted from a missing persons investigation to a double homicide. Scott Peterson was arrested just days later. But here's where things get even more complex. When Scott was arrested, he wasn't in Modesto. He was found near the Mexican border, with dyed hair, a large amount of cash, multiple cell phones, and his brother's ID. To many, it looked like he was preparing to run. During the trial, prosecutors painted a clear picture. Scott didn't want the responsibility of a child. He wanted freedom. And Laci stood in the way of that. They pointed to his affair, his lies, and his suspicious behavior. They argued that the fishing trip was a cover story, and that Laci had been murdered in their home before being disposed of in the bay. But the defense pushed back hard. They claimed there was no direct physical evidence linking Scott to the murder. No weapon. No witnesses. No clear timeline proving exactly when or how Laci was killed. They suggested alternative theories, including the possibility that Laci was abducted while walking the dog. And that's where the case becomes even more unsettling. There were reports of suspicious activity in the neighborhood around the time Laci disappeared. Some witnesses claimed to have seen a pregnant woman walking a dog after Scott had already left the house. Others reported a burglary happening nearby that same morning. Could Laci have encountered someone else? Could this have been a tragic coincidence? Or were these just distractions from the truth? The jury ultimately found Scott Peterson guilty of first-degree murder for Laci and second-degree murder for Conner. He was sentenced to death in 2005. But the story didn't end there. Years later, questions about the trial began to surface. Critics argued that media coverage may have influenced the jury. Others pointed out inconsistencies in the timeline and the lack of definitive physical evidence. In 2020, Scott's death sentence was overturned, though his conviction was upheld. He was resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Even now, the case continues to divide opinion. Some believe justice was served. That the evidence, while circumstantial, painted an undeniable picture of guilt. Others believe there are still unanswered questions. That something about the case doesn't fully add up. And that's what makes the Laci Peterson case so haunting. It's not just about what we know. It's about what we don't. Because when a case relies heavily on behavior, perception, and circumstantial evidence, it leaves room for doubt. And doubt can be a powerful thing. So what really happened on that cold December morning? Did Scott Peterson carefully plan the murder of his wife and unborn child, hiding behind a calm exterior? Or is there a version of this story that we haven't fully uncovered? The truth may seem clear to some, but for others, the shadows remain. And maybe that's why this case still grips the nation decades later. Because it forces us to confront a terrifying possibility. That sometimes, evil doesn't look like a monster. Sometimes, it looks like someone you trust. Before you go, let me know what you think. Do you believe Scott Peterson is guilty, or do you think there's more to this story than we've been told? And if you want more deep dives into the darkest and most mysterious cases out there, don't forget to subscribe to Shadow Files and turn on notifications. Because the next story might be even more disturbing than this one. And until then, stay curious and stay cautious.